All right, all right, all right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have an exciting show for you all tonight. We are the four elements. I'm Earth,
And I'm water.
When
I'm fire.
and we are the four elements. Now, we have a pretty demanding, that's how I viewed it, conversation. Highly requested, but it was sort of demanded. It was like a command. You're gonna do this next week. So I said, all right, we'll do it. So we're gonna talk about like where we left off last week because we're always on the time, we're always on the clock, and time is ticking constantly. So we're gonna get this thing started. So last week, as you know, we had this conversation about knowing. And I said, I exist in the state of knowing, on the realm of knowing. And then there were some people who said, "Oh, is that like belief? Is it like faith?" It's like no, not even close at all. So before we really dive into this subject tonight, I am going to break down for you what knowing is, what belief is, and it may possibly, we'll see. It may shift your thinking just a little bit. Now, before we start this conversation, I want everybody to be like in this space of like you have nothing going on with it. You're just open for new information. And then you get a chance to choose whether or not I'll take this on, and be like, man, Earth is just full of it. He is like, nah, that's not happening. Not for me. Okay? So, knowing. What does it mean to know? So, to know means be aware, to be aware of through observation, inquiry, and information. Say it one more time. To be aware of through observation, inquiry, information. That is knowing. Now, a few of you talked about belief and faith and so when I break this down, hopefully you'll see the distinction just in the definition of them. Because as I said last week, it's really a 5-minute conversation, and you all will be able to go home and we can turn the lights off and we can get on about our business. Now, so belief is an acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists. It's an acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists. Now, I want to break down acceptance because that is the key word in that statement. Acceptance is the action of consenting to receive or undertake something that is offered. Acceptance, does not state anything about observing anything, being an inquiry of anything, or having information. You're just accepting it at face value. No proof needs to be there. Zero. So now let's look at faith. Faith is complete trust or confidence in someone or something. That's faith. But you're having that complete trust and confidence. And it says nothing about observation, inquiry, or information. I want to press pause right there and check in with the elements to see what you all think about those definitions of knowing, belief, and faith.
One more
And I
time.
would love for Fire to kick this off because he was all in the, in that mix.
One more time. Could you generate knowing,
Knowing.
knowing and acceptance?
Okay. Knowing. It's be aware of through observation, inquiry, or information. Okay? Acceptance. The action of consenting to receive or undertake something offered.
Okay. So I'm gonna make it quick. I am clear that there is a clear distinction between these. Let me just get straight to it. Belief, faith, and knowing, there are clear distinctions. And so what I'm present to right now in this moment is your reaction and your response last week when I interpreted what it meant for me. And your reaction was no. it was no. It's completely different. And I'm clear that it is completely different. So belief, the acceptance that a statement is true. To accept is not to even have faith. It is to accept. Faith, complete trust and confidence in someone or something. Complete trust is different than acceptance and therefore belief. Knowing, to be aware either through observation, inquiry, or information. These are like three different these are like three different things, man. And I'm clear that I was making them synonyms, and I'll pause right there.
Yeah, and you use the acceptance means to accept. So that was your Jedi mind trick for saying I know what acceptance is. It just means to accept.
I must have, my bad. Thank you.
He meant receive.
Accept the action or consent to receive or undertake, right? Okay. So yeah, acceptance was a word teased out of the definition for belief. Just for those of you who are watching, listening, and not taking copious notes like myself. So that was to unpack what it means to accept. Consent. Another word for consent is to concede. In some contexts, so all of these things vastly different. What you got, Water? Other than calling me out on my short, my Reader's Digest version of acceptance.
There you go. What was the question again? Look, I was too busy focused on you, Fire, that I don't even remember what the question was.
The question is, what are you hearing? What are you hearing in these definitions? What opens up for you? If anything.
Yeah. I like the acceptance part. I think that a lot of times when people talk about believing something, it almost reeks of plowing through something, right? So you're plowing through, trying to really effort a lot of energy. You get really determined, doggedly, you just believe. And I think that acceptance isn't part of belief for most people. Maybe there's some people out there who are really, really evolved and they do just accept and they believe and things like that. But typically what happens is when I hear the word belief, especially for myself, when I think, hey, I believe in this or I believe this, it's a real rigid, it's kind of like, I believe this, man. And that to me is what I'm hearing when I hear acceptance, as opposed to belief, or the acceptance part of your definition that you were having or whatnot. Yeah. Look at Win. Look at that smile right there, man.
Come on,
$1 million smile. This guy's got something. Let's zoom in on that smile right there, man. What you got, Win?
It's interesting just to hear these definitions because to be honest, I haven't even heard these definitions in a while, and I haven't heard it clarified in that manner. We use these words so often that I guess we're not clear about these distinctions and clear about the true essence of these words. One of the things that came to my mind is that when we talked about faith and trust, and I don't want to go into a different conversation, but it was interesting to hear that definition, because we have some serious trust issues, and we don't trust one another. And so we need to talk about that one of these days. Maybe I'll talk about that on my next episode, or maybe we'll get there sometime down the line tonight. But that's all I got for right now.
Yeah, we can't wait to hear about your trust issues.
Now, I don't know.
Hold on. On a serious tip, Earth. I want to second what Wynn did say, as far as, hey, this is, and Fire said it as well. These are words that are kicked around and thrown around that a lot of times we don't really realize that we're communicating. We don't understand what we're communicating, and sometimes we may be miscommunicating to people, or not clearly communicating to them what we're trying to say, or we're not conveying the meaning that we actually are intending. So I like this conversation for the simple fact that it can help myself as well as people, especially like Fire, who are taking like a whole book. This guy has a whole scroll of notes that he's taken or whatever. So people, everyone who's actually in this conversation can get something to it at the very bare minimum to be able to communicate a lot more clearly and to understand when someone else is communicating to them a lot more clearly.
Yeah.
I would also contend that first and foremost, we don't have an understanding of ourselves, so we're not communicating to ourselves properly. We don't have an understanding, for what we want to, go for, because these definitions, these words are so powerful and so rooted in our conversations and in our society that they could be fighting words. I mean, the chat was in an uproar last week, so I mean that's the reason why we trying to get clarity today. So let's get to it.
Yeah, an excellent point, Wynn. Excellent point, because language is everything, period. And we have two different languages. We have the textbook language and we have social language. And social language always sits on top of the textbook. It's like how we misuse the word ignorant. Just means lack of knowledge. Nothing more than that. But we have said you're ignorant, right? That means that basically you're dumb. It's what it's saying. But that's a social definition of it. But the true definition is you just don't know. Lack of knowledge. That's it. That is nothing more, nothing less than that. But I don't know if you all noticed, but I left one word off because it sits underneath both belief and faith. And it is hope.
Yeah.
Hope sits underneath both of those. And so this is the definition of hope. It is to want something to happen or be true and think that it could happen or be true. That sits underneath belief and faith. and belief and faith ride the wave of hope. And if you read the definition of knowing, I would prefer to exist in the state of knowing any day. Because there's no, is either this or that. And you have evidence through observation, means that this thing, I know it will happen because I've observed this happening. Or you're being in the inquiry about it. There's some investigating that you've done.
It has a fundamental basis in reality.
Exactly. And all of that, you gather information to come to a conclusion. This will happen. Period. And what I'm going to say is not, it's definitely not to shade anyone or shade what anyone believes or anything like that, but to exist in those other three, faith, belief, and hope. You're like in a fantasy world, really, because there's no certainty that it will happen. And usually when you exist there, if it does not happen, I know this because I used to exist there. When it does not happen, many times you're left with disappointment, upset, whatever you're left with, whatever that is for you, you're left with that. That's all you got. And you say, well, maybe next time, or we'll say, well, maybe it wasn't meant to be. But within many traditions, or say within my tradition, there's no not meant to be. It's just happened or it didn't happen. It's really simple. No different than, it's going to be nightfall at whatever time. We know it's going to be nightfall. You don't hope it's going to be nightfall. You don't have faith that it's going to be nightfall. You don't believe it's going to be nightfall. You know there's going to be nightfall at some point. You know that. So yeah, that's just the fundamental difference. See, I told you this could be a very compact, very short conversation. Once you get what they all actually mean and what we're actually saying, it could possibly change your point of view. Totally. What y'all got?
Well, I wanted to ask you because my sense is that you have a you've effectively muted your meaning-making machinery, like, to live in this domain of exacts and is or isn't just seems very, very, very boring to me. I like
you gotta spice it. You gotta spice it up sometimes, right?
Like real talk. Like it seems like, dang, I put myself in your shoes. Like, man, this dude ain't got no drama. And for me, I'm just present to how like drama is the spice of life. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like making stuff up, and I've gotten real good at making stuff up that serves me, But yeah. You made out a good. You call out some things that are important, which are, in the event that whatever it is that I made up, that I wanted or desired for myself, that I had hope for, belief in, faith in, doesn't manifest itself. When I was younger, it was, what did you do? What's wrong with you that you didn't make this happen? And I even counted it as a growth or maturity in my faith, because I got to a place where I say, it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't the Lord's will, to your point. It wasn't the Lord's will. Because if it wasn't the Lord's will, I gave my best, I can sleep at night. If it didn't happen and I didn't give my best, then there was shame and guilt associated with those things unmanifested. Manifested. We can get into that. You can take the conversation down that rabbit hole too, bro. Because you said we don't manifest nothing. I'd love to hear your perspective on that. So I'm just present to how like dry with toast with no jam your life must be, and how much. And I'm just kidding on that because I'm sure it's not. But how much I love drama. I love the meaning making facet or aspect of being human. And I'm hanging out with, like, what would it even be like to operate in this domain of knowing? Like, man, I really got to hang out with this, bro, because it's so different than what I've been doing my whole life.
Yeah, I mean, it actually it actually puts you in a space where you're no longer at the mercy of life. And to not be at the mercy of life and to have life at the mercy of you, that's freedom. Like that's like real power. To get up in the morning and say, this is how my day will be, and have your day to be that, and know that this is how your day is going to be. And it doesn't mean that life doesn't happen. Life happens, but it does not interfere with how you say your day is going to be. Yeah. And so it's a totally different way to exist in the world. And that's why, like, existing that way, you are literally unbothered by the ills of society. Totally unbothered. Not in a way where you stuffing something down or ignoring something. Just doesn't bother me. I can acknowledge that something exists, and it exists over here, but I don't have to bring it to me because it's there, and I know I don't have to. I don't have to make it a part of me, and that's so freeing and liberating. It's incredible. So what y'all got?
Well, I'd say between Fire's drama, his desire, his need for drama, and Wynn's trust issues, we're gonna have a lot of good shows coming up for the elementals out there. That's all I have to say. And you know, on a serious note, I would say, man, that hardly anybody lives this way. So for all the robots out there like Earth, we want to really commend you because, bro, you and Eckhart Tolle and Deepak Chopra and Yoda are probably the only 4 people in this dimension that live like that. Outside of that, the rest of us, we live like Fire and Wynn. You know, we have trust issues, and we need some drama every now and then. Or, I mean, Fire seems like he needs it a little bit more than every now and then. But I mean, we all desire that, and I think that is what, as Kenyatta is saying in the comments, is what kind of makes the game of life for most of us. However, the real game is what you're saying, Earth, which is to literally wake up tomorrow morning and know this is how my day is going to go. It's something hard to wrap at least my brain around. When you got that smile on your face, man, like you know what Earth is actually talking about, and Fire and I, we don't know.
Well, I want to get back to the definitions. Like you said, Earth, there's what we call connotation and denotation, right? Mm-hmm. So the denotation is relative to the actual textbook dictionary definition of a word, whereas the connotation is relative to the societal working, how we actually relate to a particular word on an everyday basis. So it could be shaped and molded. So if you know this for a fact, Webster and all dictionaries, they add words and they bend definitions all the time to current events and to what's going on currently in the society and how people are using terms. So that speaks to the limitation of language itself. Like you discussed last week, there is no absolute clarity that can actually be provided to everyone to adequately describe what you're talking about. So it actually has to be, discussed at length, or maybe have to get granular in some sense and give people real life examples on how things might function for them.
Yeah, I mean, so let me say this.
Yeah.
If we remove the fluff and only deal with this is what this means, not what's added to it, it's very powerful. Generally, when something is added, it creates confusion because you're adding on to something that is already it's already set. It's fine. And so when we start adding additional definitions, oh, it means this, and it means this, and it means this, it creates this world of confusion. Because you know what happens, like when we have too many options, we get stuck in this state of limbo. And we don't even get that we're getting stuck in a state of limbo when you start adding multiple different definitions to something. And if we could just view the definitions as they are, don't add anything or take anything away from them, it's extremely powerful to live your life out of what knowing, for example, actually means. You can even live powerfully out of belief when you know this is what it means, and I am fine with an acceptance. I'm fine with that. But you have to get, I'm fine with that, and why, what the word actually means. And you can live powerfully out of that, because then if you know what it means, there should be no upset, and no disappointment ever, because you know this is not rooted in any type of knowing. It's not rooted in any type of observation, inquiry, or information. It's just something that I am accepting based upon really what someone said in most instances. If we could just understand and live out of that, you can actually live very powerfully out of all of these, all three of these words. You can, really.
What's also fundamental?
You're still existing out of knowing. Nonetheless, knowing is still at the root of it.
I see what you did there.
I like
that.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a comment that I want to queue up. Fire, you're our resident comment reader.
All right, so this question comes from YouTube. Moya Martin on YouTube. Thank you, Moya. You always rocking with us week in and week out. You're a faithful elemental. Got to give you a quick shout out. So the question is for Earth. If I perform a ritual and walk away fully expecting the result I want, is that not an act of faith? I can almost answer this, but I'm going to, because I'm an expert now in knowing after 29 minutes. But I'm gonna let you go ahead, Earth. What you got?
It is only an act of faith if you walk away with an expectation. Then, yeah. When I do rituals, I walk away knowing that I'm going to get that result. There's no maybe I will, maybe I won't, kind of, sort of, blah. None of that exists for me. And that allows me to do a ritual, and I walk away. And usually when I do it, I forget about it, because I just go about my life, go about my day, whatever I'm doing, I just get on with it, period. So it could be faith. It depends upon how you walk away. That's all the difference in the world. It all depends. So I hope that answered your question.
And going back to your point that you made earlier, which is you can operate powerfully in this domain of faith. You can know that you're choosing to walk away from the ritual, expecting the result that you want, acknowledging it as an act of faith, and keep it pushing, or operate in the expectancy of that thing to manifest. But that's you can choose that powerfully though, versus being at the mercy of a limited vocabulary, right? Or a limited experience between these distinctions of faith, belief, knowing, and hope.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Somebody else had something that was interesting that I wanted to pull to the table. Oh, I know who it was. Hold up. It was a question. Oh, here we go. So Saran. So Chief, can we shift gears to the manifestation conversation? So
Well,
Oh.
hold on. Let me just make one comment before you go there. One of the fundamental things that I think that's missing from this conversation is that the fact that, you know, we are for the most part caught up in the matrix, right? And we have to accept and acknowledge that fact that there is always room to grow and levels to ascend to. And that pertains to all of these definitions. So the basis of transformation and powerful living is first accepting reality. And the reality is that we have been adversely impacted by our environment and society. And so once we understand that, then we can, you know, sit back and not be offended by what somebody else is saying, but actually listen and learn. And like I said, ascend to other levels. So I just wanted to insert that.
Oh man, let me play devil's advocate for a second as we get back to the manifestation conversation, because I think, you know, what I just reread the definition of knowing, and I'm like, hold up, because if knowing exists for me as a function of empirical observation, like I saw it, I experienced it, right? I want to be careful that we are mindful that we're not applying an empirical observation to a person and their character in perpetuity. It's like, I know who you are because you've shown me, I seen it, and what everybody said about you is true. I confirmed it with my own eyes, and that's who you are. You can't be anybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think contextually, if we're just talking about spirituality or our beliefs, our sacred cows, it's pretty clear. But when you start talking about relationships and how we apply knowing generally across the board, how we deal with people, if I experience somebody behaving in a way that is consistent with the way others said that this person is, do I then know that this person is this way because I saw it and I got informed on it?
Yeah, reality today could be a different reality tomorrow. There's no permanence to reality. So, for example, if I take water and apply heat on it, you know, it's going to turn to vapor. If I apply something else, if I apply extreme cold to it, it's going to turn to ice. You know, so there's no permanence to the state of a particular reality.
Great distinction.
And I think, Fire, what you were talking about was more judgment than knowing at the end of the day. Like when we are dealing with people, the unfortunate part is that we start to assess that's a whole nother thing that happens, is just our assessments of people, ourselves. And I think that what ends up happening is there's a lot of filtering going on that's not knowing. So I think that the what Earth is describing is a really, really powerful tool that, like I said earlier, very few people in this whole dimension actually operate like that on a daily basis. And so it's something that you would have to work up to the same way of meditating or the same way of running for some people or cardio for some people. Some people live sedentary lives. And so, running a mile to them would be a big, big deal. For some people, they are so ADD, devices everywhere, notifications everywhere, that sitting in silence for 30 seconds would be pure terror. It would just be like, oh my God, what is happening? So I think that to what Earth is describing is something that's more or less, maybe it is a switch. Earth. This would be a good distinction for you to because you were saying no definitions, but like in my mind, this is something that would be a practice. Maybe in your mind, this is something that just is a switch, and you're just like, hey, from here on out, I know. However, to me, like I'm reading the book Atomic Habits right now, and we're just habitual creatures. So if my mind is habitually judging, assessing, filtering, and then saying, oh, I'm applying knowing to this person, or hi, this is knowing, when I'm literally not really applying it, is a whole different ball game. So can you speak on that? Because I think that for some people it'll be it's possible that they could have a light switch, an aha moment, if you will. And for others, it'll be something where, dude, that'll take some work, because I have a knowing that as soon as my automatic mind starts to get into its habitual ways, or when I'm not being present, it's just going to happen like that, where I'm not applying knowing.
Yeah. So excellent question. You have to acknowledge where you exist. What realm do you exist in? You have to be clear about that. I exist in a very judgmental realm, or wherever that is. You have to be clear about that, and then understand that you're judgmental because more than likely you've been nurtured or trained to be judgmental. You possibly, I don't remember what I was thinking when I was a baby, so I have no clue. You possibly did not come out of the womb being judgmental. So for the most part, it's something that you have to be aware of. You have to have not even a lot, just self-awareness, period. That is key. And then begin to live your life in that way, because being in the state of knowing, one of my favorite words in that definition is inquiry. If you're constantly in the inquiry, then that applies to everything. That applies to people. It applies to things that you're up to in life. Whatever. It applies to all of it. So if you're always in the inquiry, then someone could be X today, and have a shift and be Y tomorrow. If I'm in the inquiry, I'm not going to view them as Y, or X say Y tomorrow. Yeah, as X, because X is gone. X does not exist at all. And so then it gives you the space to actually interact with life, to interact, with people or whatever differently, and not have to be stuck in your interactions with life, not have to be stuck in how you navigate through life. And I argue, this is my argument, that existing in the other three has you stuck, because you're not in the inquiry. There's no observation. You're not getting any information that's useful, that could have you shift, because you're always in this kind of,
it's nebulous.
Yeah, exactly.
It has no real basis in reality, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
So then, Earth, what you're basically saying is that it is a practice for the uninitiated, for us three, not for
Nah,
not
just
for
me and
the
you.
not for the
like
ones who have arrived.
Just me and you, bro.
Like I said earlier, all of us have a particular base, and we have to know and see where that base is. And once we acknowledge that, then we can actually take the actions necessary to begin to ascend. But like Earth said, it requires that acknowledgement. It requires being in the inquiry, meaning being fully engaged in life, being a full participant, listening, observing, studying, um, doing all sorts of things that will help you to go to the next level and to the next level, to the next level. It's just like the old game Donkey Kong or any of the games that we played back in the day on Atari or ColecoVision or whatever. I'm dating myself, I know that.
Yep.
But there's always another level to go to, right? There's always a greater clarity. Just like a camera. Like you can, move the lens this way and get clarity, and then move it another way and get a greater clarity, and then put another lens on it and get an even more greater clarity. That's how life is.
Yeah.
Which is just really a long-winded way of saying what I said, which is it's a practice.
Yeah.
A long-winded way, pun intended.
Yeah.
And now everybody sees why these shows are an hour. I tell these guys we can have these shows in like 3 minutes.
Yeah, right.
I digress.
But, it's not a simple or easy journey for most people. How I got there, I consider myself very fortunate in how I got there. Was able to get to this space. Everyone does not have the opportunity to totally be taken out of this cultural context and be in a totally different cultural context and actually live there and just be there, interact there, and become an integral part of that particular cultural context. And so it's easier if you can be taken out and placed someplace else. It's amazing how you will begin to adapt. No one has to say exist in knowing. You just out of observation, you're like, man, these people, they got something going on over here that I don't have, nor do I know anyone else who has that. And if you're not able to do that, you have to be willing to go through the process, and going through the process, you have to be willing to extend grace and mercy to yourself, because you're going to stumble, you're going to fall, you're going to trip. All these things will happen, period. But if you're not able to extend grace and mercy to yourself, then you'll get up and go the other way, because doing what you were used to doing will actually occur as being easy. Or it's easier just for me to just be in this other space, because that's what you're comfortable with. That's what you know. And so you have to be willing to extend grace and mercy to yourself. That's one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself, period, is to do that. It's simple. And begin to really don't view it as though like I'm out here by myself, because you're not. Use your resources. I'm a huge fan of using resources. Incorporate friends, family, whomever into your journey. And then you all can be accountable to one another as you go along. It makes it so much easier. And it's a journey, because you have to get how you got where you are today. It's your age, and I give you a little grace, -2 years. So whatever your age minus 2 years, that's how long you practice to get where you are today. So you're actually a professional at being who you are, really. And it's gonna take it's not 40 years or 30 years, whatever. It's not gonna take that long to actually exist in a whole new paradigm. But it's gonna take time. You just have to be patient through the process. So
and I would argue that the reason why you've been successful in getting where you have gotten at a more rapid pace, comparatively speaking, is because you have fundamentally acknowledged where you were and known that there's another place to be that's more powerful, and that's actually returning back to yourself. I've always said that this whole journey is a matter of returning to yourself. Because once you acknowledge that you are not where you are naturally predisposed, you are not yourself, and something is not right, that's the formation. That puts you in the inquiry. You are then a self-initiate seeking
right.
What's next. Just like Jesus. You know, Jesus was a young man and he studied under the masters for years and years and years. He fasted, he prayed, he meditated 40 days, 40 nights here and there. He traveled. It was a process to mastery. He didn't just become a master. Nobody just comes out the belly or the womb a master. But it requires you to accept where you are and know that there's something not necessarily in alignment. And like I said, it puts you in the inquiry and you become that self-initiate, and that puts you on the path.
All right, good point, man. Good point. So the comments, they're still rolling. Fire.
Yes, sir, buddy. So this is from Tiff Hunt, coming to us from YouTube. Tiff says, what does consistently being in inquiry moment to moment look like in practice?
Excellent question. What that looks like, whenever you're in a state of self-awareness, you will always be in the inquiry. It's like it's an automatic thing. Because your self-awareness, it just means being aware, not just of self, but of your surroundings as you live through each moment. And when you're self-aware, you're not in this fantasy of how life should be. You're just in life how it is. And life is always happening. So as life happens, you're observing life. You're getting information from life, which forces you have to be in the inquiry of life to be when you're self-aware. You have to, it's like an automatic thing. It's very automatic. There's no magic pill, or there's nothing I can say, oh, do this, and you'll just be in the inquiry all the time. You're just being self-aware. And just allow, and when you're being self-aware, you're allowing yourself to be. That is the most important thing. Just allowing yourself to be. Period.
What it looks like, go ahead.
No, I said, go ahead. You got it.
What it looks like on a day-to-day basis is, you know, does this feel right? Does this sound right? Am I doing my best right now? Am I performing to the optimal? Am I being a great human being? How can I interact with this human being better? What kind of relationships can I establish that make my life better? Things of that sort. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
In practice. in practice. So Megan Hill coming to us from Facebook just hit the nail on the head, Meg. If I was to respond to that question, that's exactly how I would answer it. For me, it's about presence. Like I have no access to self-awareness outside of presence. And what I was grappling with is how when I am present, there's no drama. There's not even a whole lot of emotions. There's no attachment. There's just being. And I admitted it on this show earlier. I'm admitted again. To me, that mess was boring. I'm just gonna keep it a buck with you. It's boring, man. However, there is no pain. There is no suffering. There is no toil. It is most definitely, as Earth called out earlier, a more powerful way of being. And so, to Walter's point, and whoever asked the question about being a daily TIFF, asking a question about a daily practice, it always comes back to more presence for me. I also want to call out Habiba before we move on. Habiba said, "This is so wild. I see the characteristics in each man. Like you know, I can see the elements popping through."
Well, Habiba, just so you know, Fire actually told us our elemental names. We didn't get a chance to choose it ourselves. So
Right.
maybe he just had a vision, and you know, his vision was correct.
Yeah.
I want to speak to your need for drama. Just like in the game of Donkey Kong, at each level there was a added level of difficulty, right? And more obstacles in the course.
I'm sorry, man. If you guys hear me laughing, this guy's using like video games.
Because I'm making it. I'm trying to make it practical for everybody. I'm trying to make it easy and simple.
I'm sorry, bro. It's just funny, man.
I get it, and you're perfectly well to laugh at it.
Go ahead. I just wanted to give some context to why I'm laughing instead of just over here snickering.
Oh,
I see the barrels rolling down the ladder, and
me too. I'm holding back. Like,
this guy's like, you know, hey, let me drop some knowledge. So in the game of Donkey Kong, it's like, bro.
About to get deep.
All right,
but those added levels of difficulty actually make you ascend to different levels of mastery. And so there's no. What I'm saying is that there's no mystery as to why we like drama or why we're attracted to drama, because it actually makes us better. We're actually purified by the fire.
This is true. Hey, there's two more questions for Earth I want to make sure we get to before we close the show. All right.
Yep.
And before I do that, when you mentioned and what you said, I can't remember what you said specifically, but what I saw and what you said is, even in the absence of being intentionally present, life or the universe or the Most High, what have you, circumstances present themselves when we find ourselves in a trough or a valley. It is in that trough or valley where you may have been just bumping along, addicted to drama, but when that behind hit rock bottom, that inquiry starts, because this right here ain't working. This right here is painful. This right here is undesirable. It's hurting me and others, people that I love. And so you begin to become in the inquiry and self-aware. For most of us who get out of this expeditiously, self-aware about who am I being and what am I doing that would cause this reality, right? It's on me. And so I think, to your point, even with being a drama-loving human being, at least I can admit it, that when the drama it gets too hot, like it's unhealthy, it's toxic, I do pivot every time, and it's like going to that next level, right? So, all right, Earth, you talked about manifestation. Could you unpack how we don't manifest nothing? That's what you said. Could you unpack how we don't manifest anything? Last thing before we close is, you also said possibility doesn't exist. I wrote down possibility versus isness. It either is or it isn't. So could you touch on those two things before we close out?
Ooh.
Quickly, without using Contra and Tetris analogies.
Wow. Let me
Metroid and Pac-Man.
you know,
Mario Brothers.
the manifestation would have to be a whole nother show, because that's a very deep conversation.
But you guys
When
always
you
do
look
this.
up the definition of manifest.
You guys always do this. Like, you're like, oh,
I know.
I tell you what, like, this is gonna take 35 minutes for me to, like, and if as far as fault, you queued them up. Like, my God.
So
That's a
we'll
necessary
do a
conversation.
whole separate show on manifesting, because you have to really get into the definition of that and start breaking it down, and you will see what manifestation really is. Okay, now, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that on another show. Maybe
I'll vote to do that next week.
I vote not
All right.
to.
You
It's
got
my
it.
turn up next week, so I veto all three of you. Now, Earth, we got 4 minutes. You guys always do this. You want to have like these 7-hour shows, and like you got 4 minutes, bro. Like, all three of you, you just want to talk all day. Like, guys, go get a life. Like, I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna come to all three of your houses and just get you a life.
And then we have a wrap-up call for another 2 hours after the
Exactly.
Lord have mercy.
Exactly.
Okay. So real quick. So what I want to do is I want to address something before I forget, right? Because I saw it in the comments, someone mentioned something about we have to return to self, right?
Yeah.
The reality is return means that you've left, you've exited, you're gone, and you're coming back. That's what it means. But really, you haven't gone anywhere. You just haven't acknowledged
What's so?
You haven't acknowledged self. It's an acknowledgement. And I get how we use, it's the saying return to self. I get it. But in reality, we haven't gone anywhere at all. You'll be like a walking corpse, basically, if you exit it, like the Walking Dead. So I just want to make that point. Now, we got 3 minutes. What's the second question?
Possibility versus isness. You said possibility there's no such thing. Last call, you said that.
Right. Because really, it's not possible that nightfall will come. It will come. It's not possible that, quote unquote, what we call sunrise or morning will come. It will. And so the moment we begin to live and to operate as nature operates, it is extremely powerful. We'll say, oh, it's possible that this person may die. No, either they're going to live or they're going to die. That's the reality of it. One of the two will happen, definitely. And the thing about the English language, and when you put it up against other languages, the English language that we praise so much is a trick bag. Because it has all of these shades of gray. And when you go into other cultures and you introduce these shades of gray, they are literally confused. Because either it will happen or it will not. You will not hear someone say, I might come in the morning. They will say, I will be there in the morning or I will not. It's and it makes life simple. The English language is a trick bag. And it's a trap because it keeps you from really being active, being present, being powerful in life. Because there's so many ways that we can configure a sentence and a statement to let ourselves off the hook and not be responsible. But if you look at other languages, there's no way off the hook. You're going to do something or you're not. It's really that simple. Because they operate as nature operates. And the moment we begin to do that, we will be extremely, extremely powerful. And that is something that I am working on gaining mastery over. Because I'm clear as a trick bag, but the conditioning to be almost, possibly, maybe, kind of, no. So that's what I would say about that. Get out of the realm of possibility. I get why it exists. I get it. And it can have its usefulness. I'm not saying throw it away. It's useful, but it should not run our lives at all. Because we'll turn around and say, well, I didn't say that I would do it. I said possibly. We'll do that. Very non-committal. Very. But anyway, it's time. Closing
comment.
Yeah.
Was that your closing comment, Earth?
Yeah.
No, that was his introduction. That was his introduction.
We're just getting started. When closing comment, I'll have a closing comment. Then we'll take it to Water because he's going to tee up his show next week.
I would just say that I hope that everybody got something from this conversation. If you haven't gotten anything, know this is that language, has certainly mixed us up. And there's other levels of clarity that could be had and need to be had to get to know the levels of our lives. So seek that and smash that subscribe button.
Yeah, I'll go quick. Just the thing for me is to Earth said operate like nature, and what I got clear on is operate as nature, because we are nature. We are in fact one with nature, and I just got present to how like nature doesn't labor or toil. It just is. It just bees. And if we would just leave it alone, oh, what a world it would be. We are, and I don't mean this in a negative context, but we are in a sense parasitic to the planet. If you follow sustainability, and we are most definitely, in a lot of ways, our own parasites to ourselves, like our own minds. And so, if we purge and let go of all these attachments to these thought forms that don't really serve us, I won't say anything is possible, but what we will be is like nature. So that's all I got. Appreciate y'all rocking with us. Habiba, thanks for checking in. This is the first time I've seen you. And yes, you are correct in that the elements, each element resides in all of us. And we call ourselves because of the dominant personality. But certainly we're all earth, wind, fire, water, and everything else. So thank you for rocking with us. Thank you all for rocking with us. Water?
Yeah, I totally agree with Earth. He opened this whole conversation with saying that this really was a 5-minute topic. And I mean, you guys are all magicians because you turned a 5-minute conversation into an hour and 5-minute conversation. So I just want to commend all three of you for just the wizardry that you have. And I want to tell everyone that this show could be summed up in one sentence or a simple phrase, which is the practice of knowing, because it literally is a practice that people were asking, how does it look? And it really just looks like, hey, you just practice. You'll basically fall off. It's like taking the training wheels off your bike, and then you practice more. And before you know it, you can actually ride the bike and you'll have a smile on your face, just like Wind has right now. It'll be so beautiful. So beautiful. Now, next show, Earth will not be doing a second consecutive show again. Like, I'm stopping all that because last time we did that, it was a complete fiasco and disaster. So we will not be doing that. This next show will be the power that I think all of us have within us. And the next show will be how living in the present moment can open up a new world for you. Stay tuned next week, Elementals.
That is going to be hot.
Yes, sir.